Hello, everyone. Welcome to Power in Numbers Live. This is our live show for the end of September 2024. So we just started doing these live shows last month, and I really like them as a way to be able to connect, talk about more current events that are happening that I typically do on YouTube and recorded videos. So this is the time to talk about what's going on now. What are the things you need to know? This show is really geared towards small business owners who want to make sure that they're keeping up with the things that are important, news and happenings that are going to impact you potentially as small business owners. And also your to-dos, the things that you should be thinking about at this time in the year, and what maybe to prioritize as an entrepreneur, small business owner, specifically related to your finances, because that's what I do. I'm a CPA. Hi, if this is the first time you're seeing me. I'm Jamie Trull. I'm a CPA and profit strategist. And I love this stuff. So I really missed interacting. This is live on both YouTube and on Facebook. So I've missed interacting one-to-one. So make sure to tell me you're here if you're here, and I can put some comments up. Danielle from my team is in the chat to help get you links and things that you need to anything that I'm talking about. And I'm super excited. So first of all, exciting news. I think I mentioned last month, hopefully we would have a sponsor for the next month. And we do. So this month's Power in Numbers Live is brought to you by Relay. Relay is the banking solution that I use and that I trust. I actually have two different Relay accounts because I have two different businesses. And I absolutely love it. I switched early last year and I just love the ability to separate my money into different buckets, and it's fantastic. So I was really excited when Relay said that they wanted to sponsor it. So yay for Relay. I've got lots and lots of content out there on my channel about Relay as well. So again, I recommend it because I use it and I love it. So if you're looking for a new business banking platform between, the year closing out and early next year, maybe you're like the one you have isn't really working for you, I definitely would check out Relay, and jamietroll.com/relay will get you $50 for signing up with my link. So free business banking and $50, not so bad. Okay. All right. So I'm seeing more people joining. Awesome. So the other thing that we have today, because we're getting fancy on this, y'all, is our different sections that we're going to talk through within these Power in Numbers live events. We have our news, to-dos, and cues. Okay, so the news is what's going on right now. The to-dos section is what I'm going to talk about, what you should be focusing on, deadlines coming up, things to be aware of as a small business owner. And then the cues is where I take questions. So we do have a submittal process for giving us those questions, but sometimes I'll take them from the chat, or actually today I have a couple of questions that I really liked from our Financial Literacy for Women Business Owners Facebook group. So those are ones I'm going to bring up towards the end. So we have some fancy little overlays here. So we're in the news section. So as you can see, we're in the news section right now. So there's a couple things I wanted to talk about. I came across when I was looking up what's going on right now. What are some new updated statistics and things? I love data and numbers. That is probably not a shocker to literally anyone. But I found this new survey and some that the U.S. Chamber of Commerce came out with that I thought was really interesting. So I thought I'd put it up here and we can talk about this. And I'm curious to know if this is similar to what you all think. Hang on just one second. Let me present that a little bit differently. Let's make sure I'm getting, here we go. This is what I meant to do. There we go. Then you can see a little bit better. So I'm curious if this is what you're feeling too. So tell me down below, tell me in the chat, because I like to hear from real people, not just, from surveys. But what this is saying is that small business outlook is pretty positive for 2025. So I'm curious if that jives with how you're feeling walking into 2025. But some of the interesting takeaways I'll come down here and talk about. So this was a survey that this is talking about. But ultimately, well, first of all, small business owners are following the presidential election closely and mostly optimistic about 2025. Not surprising that they're following the presidential election. In fact, just after this, as a teaser, you probably want to stick around because I'm going to talk about some of the actual proposals related specifically to small businesses and how it impacts small businesses and taxes and things like that, that both of the candidates have out there. And we're going to talk about how that could impact you depending on who ends up becoming president and controlling Congress and things like that. We're going to try to talk about it from a very just, matter of fact perspective, but I know that there's a lot of thoughts and feelings. But we're going to get to that in just a little bit. Now, 51% of small business owners report their business is doing better in 2024 than a year ago. So I think 2023 was a year we saw a lot of the inflation impact happening. Seems like things have leveled out a little bit in 2024. Although in my conversations with business owners, I feel like there's still a lot of uncertainty. There's still a lot of wondering what's going to happen, right? So I think that's an interesting thing, but it looks like, 48% anticipate a stronger economy. So we'll see if that comes to fruition. 43% of small business owners believe inflation will improve over the next 12 months. We've already seen that, so hopefully that will continue. Let's see. The most optimistic group is our millennials, which technically I'm a Zennial. I guess I'm in that like lost generation in between where I played the Oregon Trail as a kid. But the millennials are the most optimistic. So that's actually a great thing. Hopefully all of this is, what ends up happening. And we see a lot of positivity going into 2025. I'm looking to see what other ones I thought were interesting. 47% though are not recruiting new employees right now. So that's interesting. There's not as much hiring going on. So I think it'll be interesting to see, at least from small business owners, how that impacts things. So this probably surprises no one. Startup business owners report the highest stress levels compared to owners who have been in business for more than 6 years. That doesn't surprise me either, although it's still high stress levels at 58% for those who've been in business for 6 years. I think we know it's like kind of new levels, new devils, right? Where there's still stresses. They just might not be as stressful as the very beginning. But I thought this was really interesting. And then kind of leading into what we're going to talk about next, it says 81% of small business owners are following political news leading up to the election closely. And an equal percentage of small business owners are optimistic the next president's policies will help their businesses. So 40% versus those who are skeptical. 39%, everyone's like, will this help? Will this hurt? So let's talk about it. I read this and I thought, you know what? People aren't really sure if it's going to help, if it's going to hurt, what it's going to do. So I'm going to talk about a couple of main proposals that I've heard the candidates talking about. And we're simply going to be looking at the lens of small business and the arena of things like taxes. Okay, so I'm sure I'm not going to be able to cover all the different things, but I wanted to bring up a couple of things that I've heard brought up by the candidates on a lot of occasions. So I'm going to start with Kamala Harris. So Kamala Harris has talked about, and she mentioned it in the debate for those of you who saw it, she talked about how her goal, one of her proposals, is to give a credit of $50,000 to startups. So increase, not a credit, a deduction. And that's actually really important. So increase the deduction. Currently, there's a $5,000 deduction for startup costs for small businesses. Anything you pay out above that gets amortized over 15 years. So you essentially get to take those deductions over a 15-year period, but only $5,000 can be taken up front before you're operational in business. So what Kamala Harris wants to do is increase that to $50,000. Now, here's some thoughts on this, because it sounds really good. Like, it really does sound good. And I think overall it is good, but maybe not as good as we would hope that it would be or that it sounds. So again, this is a deduction, not a credit. A $50,000 credit is saying like, hey, we're going to give you $50,000 essentially to start your business. That's what a credit is. And it kind of sounds like that if you're not paying attention to the terminology that's being used. But that's not what it is. She's not going to give people $50,000 to start their business. She's going to allow people to deduct actual costs that they have up to $50,000 to start up their business. So if you're starting up a business and, maybe it's a brick and mortar business. So there's a lot of like you're buying furniture and fixtures, things like that. Or maybe you've got legal costs to set up the business, accounting costs to set up the business, that kind of stuff, right? Right now, before the business is operational, you can only deduct $5,000 worth of those costs. And the rest, again, you can deduct, but you have to deduct it over time. So what this is saying is it's moving the deduction up, right? You can take up to 50,000 in the first year. But to me, these are costs that largely, like this is mostly going to impact people who, where it takes a while maybe for their business to be operational. Because if you have a bunch of startup costs in a year, right? Let's say you have legal fees, you've got all these different things, those are deductible expenses. So once you're in operation, you can deduct those. And being an operational business typically means, you're making money from the business, right? There's some cash coming in. Once you're actually operational and you're out of that initial startup phase before you're operational, you can deduct those anyway. So unless you have a situation where you've got a bunch of startup costs in one year and you're not operational until the next year, then this could help you because you can take those startup costs, assuming though that you have other income to offset that against, because it's not really going to help you in the current year if you don't have any income anyway, from other sources that you can use these deductions to offset. So all that is to say, does that cap need to increase? Yes, it does. The $5,000 was too little. It definitely needs to go up, but these are typically deductible expenses anyway. It's really a timing thing. And again, a lot of people were already deducting these because, again, they're deductible once your business is operational. So I don't think it's going to have a huge boon in the way that it's being portrayed, but I don't think it's a bad thing to do, right? So that's just an interesting kind of my take on it. Remember, this isn't a credit. They're not giving $50,000 to business owners. It's a deduction. You have to actually have the costs in order to take the deduction, right? So if you don't have $50,000 in costs, you can't take a $50,000 deduction. So I think those are just important kind of caveats here to be paying attention to. So that's the main proposal that I've seen from Kamala Harris. If you guys have seen other things that they are proposing, shoot them down below. Maybe in the next Power Numbers Live, we can talk about them. But the other thing that I want to talk about now, let's go to Donald Trump. What is he proposing? A lot of what he's proposing are extensions to things that they did back in 2018. So we had the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act that was enacted in 2018 that had a lot of corporate tax cuts in it. So if you're a C corporation, this doesn't apply to S corporations because S corporations are pass-through entities, just like an LLC, just like a sole proprietor. But if you are a C corporation, this reduced your taxes, right? So it reduced the tax on corporate earnings, and he wants to extend that. Right now, it is set to expire at the end of 2025. So it'll go through 2025, but it would take an act of Congress and a president to sign it into law in order to extend those tax cuts. Now, do I think that the corporate tax cuts really impact? I mean, of course, we're not going to get into like trickle down economics and does it spur hiring and does it help people? We're not going to talk about all that. That's an economic theory question. That's not what I'm going to say. I'm talking more directly. That piece is not probably going to impact most small business owners directly unless, again, you own a C corporation, right? So if you are a small business owner who is a pass-through entity, then that piece is not going to really impact you in any direct way. However, there is a portion of those tax cuts that did impact you, and you may not be aware that it exists. If you're an accountant, you're definitely aware that it exists because it's complicated. But it's called the QBI deduction. So that's the qualified business income deduction. And the QBI deduction is something that really did help small businesses save money. It's essentially a 20% deduction. It's a complicated calculation with phase outs and all kinds of things. Let me tell you, I don't love how complicated it is from a understanding perspective and from a even just making decisions on which entity is best for you. The QBI deduction is a little complicated, but it does save on taxes. It has saved small business owners, even pass-through entities, money on taxes. And so if that were to expire, you probably would see an increase in your tax bill. Now, if you're making tons of money already, you maybe won't because the QBI deduction does phase out. But if you are a typical small business owner, that actually would impact you. Now, Don't know whether or not Kamala Harris hasn't made public what she would do regarding that I could find anyway regarding these tax cuts and whether she would extend them or not, or extend some of them and maybe not others. So we don't know what her position would be on that, but we know that it's a really big thing. Trump really wants to extend those tax cuts. So those are probably the two main things that would have an impact on small business. To mention that the third thing is you've probably heard about the Trump tariffs. He put some tariffs on when he was in office last time. He wants to do more of that. How does that affect small business? Again, we're not going to get into the whole economic theory of it, but on a direct level, that can impact the cost of importing goods. So if you are a retailer reselling goods and you're importing, from China, things like that. That could increase your cost. And you probably already saw that the first time around. Now, it does increase government revenue, which is why they still kept the original Trump tax cuts on, but it can increase your cost. And then you're stuck in that position of, do I increase my cost now for that? Generally, I would say, yeah, you should. Your margins, you need to have healthy margins in your business. Or do you take that, and that ends up becoming, ends up kind of shrinking your own margins? I don't recommend that. But it could have kind of that negative impact. Essentially, if you have to increase your prices, you're probably going to make less sales because of price sensitivity and things like that. So again, it's more complicated. Like, I want to stress that all of these things, there are lots of different nuances that play in. But when you're hearing it, I just wanted, as you're hearing these proposals out there, I wanted you to understand, like, what are they really saying and how could this really affect me? Because sometimes it's just very like a one-liner or a two-liner, and you're like, I don't really get what the impact is on me as the small business owner. And so those are kind of my thoughts. Ultimately, none of them are super game-changing for small business owners as of what I've seen right now. So I'm probably in the camp of, I don't know that either candidate is really going to improve much in the way of supporting small business, at least with what they've put out now. But again, there's still room for proposals and, what ideas they're going to have. I do think that regardless of who's in office, it probably would be a good idea for small business owners, and I'm sure that there are agencies out there that are pushing for this, to push for the extension of the QBI deduction. I do think that regardless of who's in office, there's probably at least an avenue to go down to hopefully get those extended. So at the end of the day, my answer is, we'll see. We shall see. But definitely just there's a lot of misinformation that goes around as well, or a lot of like partial information that people give you. So this is why I wanted to really explain, how does this actually impact you from a tax perspective? So feel free to send this to somebody if you've been having an argument with them about something and you want to try to prove them wrong. Totally in support of that. Okay. So hopefully that was helpful. It looks like nobody's getting super mad in the chat, so yay. But I'm sure there will be some more comments down below when people watch this on replay and have all the thoughts. So don't hold back. Okay, let's see. So we're going to go on to our next section of this, which is our to-dos section. Woohoo! Look at this. How fancy is this? We got a sponsor. We got overlays. Like, we're so fancy these days, y'all. Okay. So this is the to-do section of Power in Numbers Live. And this is really about, okay, let's look at where we are in the year and let's think about our business. Let's think about our finances, and let's be aware of deadlines that are coming up, things we should be thinking about and on our mind at this time of year, right? So this is kind of a good time to center and think about, how do I make a plan for what I need to do for my finances? So we have a couple different deadlines coming up. We have already passed our Q3 estimated taxes deadline. That was the 15th of September. So FYI, if you forgot that, go do it now. Go pay that. Because again, if you're waiting till the end of the year to pay, you potentially could run into having interest and penalties and things like that. And we don't want that. We don't want to give the IRS more than they need. So go pay your estimated taxes if they're due. And speaking of that, if you're like, I don't know what my taxes are going to be, we're walking into the fourth quarter. This is a great time to sit down with your accountant, to sit down with like a tax strategist maybe, and talk about your taxes and talk about, okay, let's look at how much we have withheld or paid in estimated taxes. Let's look at how much income we've made from all sources. Let's look at the credits and deductions we believe that we are going to be eligible for. And let's come up with kind of an idea of, how much we're going to have to pay in taxes and start getting prepared for that. And one of the things, so I did this, I do this every fourth quarter, and I've had one time where we ended up, and it was a great problem to have, right? If you've had this problem, great problem to have, but doesn't feel great in the moment. Our income highly exceeded the previous year and what we had projected for the current year. And so what ended up happening is that in Q4, I realized, oh my gosh, I'm going to have a giant tax bill that I have not prepared for at this point in time. And yes, I'm a CPA and I still did this because it can be hard to really know, right? My projections were way off and that's where we ended up. And so I had to make some decisions, and really I had to do some extra withholding in the fourth quarter to make sure that I didn't have to come up with the money in April when I, no longer had it. So I had to do that. And there may be some strategies that you can use. So for example, I was putting large amounts into retirement accounts at the end of the year in order to shield some of that money from those taxes. So that could be an option too. So that's why you want to talk about it now. Don't wait till January, February, March to go talk to your accountant, because at that point, the ship has sailed, right? You're limited in what you can do for taxes for this year, but right now is a great time to get planning. As you're closing out Q3, that's another thing I want you to do is, we're less than a week away from the end of the third quarter. Sit down, get organized. It is a great time to get organized. That will allow you then to see and do these calculations a little bit more detailed on your taxes. But it's a great time to sit and look and see, where are you for the year as well? Revisit, what were your plans if you set goals and projections or anything in January, February of this year? How are you doing, right? If it's been a little while since you've looked back at what you planned, this is a great time to do some reconciliation and look at how the third quarter and how you're doing year to date, and come up with a plan to say, okay, we're off track, right? Maybe you're off track. How can you still in the fourth quarter, get back on track? How can you hit those goals in Q4? And this is why, it's so interesting how sales goals happen, right? If you've ever been in sales, you know this, right? The last couple of days of a quarter are like the heaviest. If you've ever walked on a car lot, when they're like trying to get those last sales in, you hustle your little patootie off to make it happen, right? As much as I'm not like a hustle culture person, I do think sometimes it's okay to go for the gold and make it happen. And so I think when and have those goals, if you don't have goals for the full year, make them now, right? Make them now to say, here's where we're at. What can we stretch to? What can we make happen in the fourth quarter of this year, right? So we want to end strong. So this is a great time to be sitting and doing this analysis and thinking about the fourth quarter, and then sitting down with your accountant again and determining how we doing on taxes. Do we need to be upping our retirement contributions? Are there expenses we need to move into this year? Are there expenses we need to move into next year? Is there income we need to move into this year? Is there income we need to try to, delay until next year? All of those, fourth quarter is the time to be having those discussions, because they can have a pretty sizable impact on your overall, tax burden. So those are just things to be paying attention to right now. This is also a really good time, and I'm going to talk about this more, as we finish out the year. It's a good time to be looking at maybe new systems, right? Maybe something hasn't been working for you. Maybe it's a new accounting software. Maybe it's a new payroll software. Maybe it's a new banking software, right? Or banking platform that you want to use. Whatever it is, this is a really good time to be doing that research such that you can switch right into the end of the year and the beginning of new year. I love new systems in a new year. It feels just it. Oh. I love it. Like that January 1st cutoff. It doesn't have to be that way. You can move all of those systems in the middle of the year. But I love a good, clean break where we finish out the year on one thing and we are ready with something new in the beginning of January, which means we need to be researching now. I'm actually going to be doing a series coming up on YouTube. So if you haven't subscribed, make sure you do, where I'm going to be comparing the best of. We're going to do like a best of series where we're going to look at the best of accounting softwares. I have some QuickBooks Online alternatives, y'all. We're going to talk about. I've been doing so much research. We're going to talk about the best of payroll. It's been a while since I've done a full payroll comparison. I have some new companies I really like for payroll, so I want you to stay tuned there. And we're going to do a best of banking as well. So, I mean, it's probably no surprise as to who we're going to be talking about a lot in banking, but we're going to compare some other banks as well that might be good fits for you. So definitely make sure to subscribe because, again, this is what we're going to be really focused on throughout the end of the year. And we're going to have some good comparisons of features between them and just who they're right for. We really want to figure out, while different people may like different accounting softwares, they're not right for everyone. And, knowing you a little bit, knowing the features that you need, that's going to be really important to picking the right thing for you that you're going to be able to be successful with. So anyway, make sure to subscribe. Y'all are great. Let's see. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and put this up here. We're going to go into well, I guess we might as well go into the Q's, and then I see something from Maritza in here, so I will get hers. Okay, we're in the Q's section. So this is the third and final section of Power in Numbers Live. This is where I take questions. There is a way to submit your questions. So if you go to, well, I guess it's different depending on if you're submitting from YouTube or you're submitting from Facebook. So Danielle will put that into the chat, but there is a way to submit your questions for me to answer on these lives. And that's, you get to have my thoughts directly to you for the next live. So make sure that if you have questions, you're submitting them, especially if you can't be on the live. So I'm going to put in Maritza's question. Hi, Maritza, how are you? Maritza says, I'm on the fence. I'm trying to figure out what to do for my business for 2025, but I have not been able to find an accountant nice enough to guide me through it. Oh man. Okay. I don't love that. They just want me to provide the P&L and doing by themselves, no question asked, and I really want to learn. So I think by and large, right, the learning is something that's why I do what I do. Like there are some accountants who will help to educate. They absolutely exist. I have a preferred vendors list. If you haven't checked it out, there are some great ones there that will help to educate as well and are really like that no judgment zone where they can walk you through things. That said, right, they don't have as much time to necessarily spend educating, and to do that, they might have to charge you more. So that's why I do a lot of what I do is to create resources to be able to educate small business owners on financial topics and kind of do it in a more scalable way that can be hard for accountants to do because especially when it's busy, now would be a better time. Like I think more accountants have time, especially once we get through the October 15th. That's the extent. If you did an extension, October 15th is your date, right? So accountants are going to be busy right now, but if you reach out to them, they'll probably put you on the books for maybe a late October meeting to talk about estimated taxes and things like that. So right now, kind of the latter half of Q4, and even into January, accountants are going to be a little less busy and they're probably more likely to be able to answer your questions and hold your hands a little bit more if they're the right kind of accountant. Now, when you get into the busy season, it gets real tough. They're trying to do those tax returns and do the bookkeeping and all the things. And so it gets a little bit tougher to get kind of that direct, access to them. But again, there are so many resources. That's why I do what I do. I've got, tons of programs out there to help business owners understand their finances. And then it helps you ask better questions to your accountants that you work with. So I'm a big fan of people having accountants that they work with. I know it isn't feasible for everyone. But it will, if you do have that, it will help you. If you're taking in this knowledge, it'll help you have better conversations, ask better questions, and really kind of empower you in this space. So I'm a big fan. Okay, I'm going to come on over, and if anybody else has questions, go ahead and throw them in. We've got some extra time. I'm going to come over though to a couple of questions that I thought would be relevant for a lot of people that I have put into the Oops, that's not the one we want. I'm going to share another screen really quick. I think this is the one I want. Okay. So this is, like I said, from my Facebook group. If you're not in it, Financial Literacy for Women Business Owners, we've got almost 41,000 members. So there's a lot of people in here, lots of great discussions and questions. So I just pulled these because I thought they were really interesting. So this one was an anonymous question that said, "Hi ladies, my husband and I both work for ourselves." Same over here. "And this year has been rough. We also have never really learned budgeting growing up, so we're trying to help our kids learn more about it so they aren't in the same position, but we still struggle with our own. Is there an app or something that can help beginners? Our monthly spending ranges drastically, and I really need to get a handle on it." Okay, so I have a couple of things I want to say here. First and foremost, I love this, and I've heard this from so many people. One of the things I'm passionate about, if you follow this channel at all, is not just empowering business owners with financial information. I love teaching your kids about money. My kids are 7 and 10. We have those conversations. They both work for my business. I teach how to do that. But it's opened up a lot of conversations around money that, most people don't have with their parents, right? Like we learn trigonometry, but we don't learn about mortgages, credit cards, right? And so I think this is an area that I'm really passionate about. So I have a couple videos out there, but my team can probably post one on what I recommend. I use Greenlight with my kids. And this is specifically for kids in budgeting. It is such a great platform. It costs like $5 a month, but again, it's for up to 5 kids. So, I mean, it could be $1 a month if you've got 5 kids, right? For each of them. But it's such a great app where they can make money, like it's a bank account and a debit card, and you can kind of set like, okay, what percentage goes where, what percentage goes to savings, what percentage goes to spending, what percentage goes to giving. You can even do that within the app. What percentage goes to specific savings goals that you can set up in there. You can even invest through that. I think that's $10 a month. Maybe it's a little bit higher of a cost, but I have my kids set up to invest in there. They can literally buy stocks and research stocks within the app. My son loves it. He's always wanting to go check to see how his stocks are doing. And when he makes money, he wants to, to be apportioning it out to all the things. It's the first thing that we do. So it just has opened the conversation. And that's another reason I love, kids working for your business, even in a very limited capacity, because it opens the door for these conversations, right? So they're making money. What do they do with it? I paid my son $100 for something recently. And, we got to sit down and think about like, okay, what's going where? What's your next thing that you want to save for? He saved for a crested gecko that we have upstairs. Now he wants to save for another one. The answer is no. I'm trying to find a non-live thing to save for. But it really allows them to take control of their money and understand and have that understanding at such an early age of what to do and how to budget. So I'm a big fan of Greenlight. I do have, let's see, my team put it up here, JamieTrull.com/Greenlight. If you use this link, actually, my son is partnered with me on this. So he gets half of, I think we get like $40 for everybody that signs up, and it's free to you to do, but he gets half of it. So he's always like, how many people signed up for Greenlight? So there's some videos with him and I on YouTube if you want to see him talk about it. Okay, let's see. The next question you had in here is also about you, right? Like, so how do you budget? So there's different things. What you want to look at is, because you're business owners, right? There's kind of that business piece first. So how do you manage money within your business? And then once you pay that money to yourself, how do you manage it personally? And those really should be 2 separate systems. A lot of people want to combine it, but I think we have to get used to thinking about our business and our personal siloed from each other. That's going to help you really make sure you're prioritizing profit. And, when we kind of mix it all together or try to manage it all together, it gets really muddy, right? So I'm a big fan when it comes to managing money in your business. There are a couple different ways that you can do it. I talk about profit planning, so we can drop that profit plan link into, that'll help you. It's not strict budgeting. So if you've struggled with a budget before, it's probably not your fault. It's just, that's the nature. Budgets feel restrictive. And budgeting in our business can actually be like over budgeting, I guess, in our business can actually be a hindrance because we may be less likely to invest in our business. We may be, less likely to pay ourselves from our business, all these things if we are hyper focused on the budget aspect of things. So I'm not necessarily like fully against budgets. I think that people who are budget people, right? Like it's perfect for them. They are going to like be all about it. Right? Like they love that act of, putting things in the little buckets and things like that. But for the rest of us, and I put myself in this because I don't love to budget, it's coming up with systems that do work for you. And there isn't just one system, right? Despite what gurus out there might tell you, there isn't just one system to do this. There isn't just one system to take control of your finances. The right system is the one that works for you. Right? So one thing I found in business that tends to work for people, and just to kind of bring up Relay again, just because it fits in really well here, is that if you use something like Relay, and this is why forever, like years ago, I was looking for a business bank where I could separate money into different buckets. They do have personal accounts that do that, but at the time they had no business accounts where I could literally have a tax account and I could have a savings for my business account, right? I could have a rainy day emergency fund. There wasn't a business bank account that allowed me to do that, which I thought was crazy. And that is one of the reasons that, when Relay came on the scene early last year, I was like enamored immediately. And I reached out to them and said, how can I partner with you? Because like you can see here, it lets you set up different accounts. These are legitimate different accounts, separate accounts with different routing numbers and different account numbers. And you can give access to different employees to these. You can set, if you use Profit First, you can use this. If you use my profit planning methodology, you can use this. If you just want to set it up however it makes sense to you, but you can have a separate payroll account, right? That all your payroll comes from. And it literally, like all you have to do to add an account is to click a button. It's seriously that easy. And all of a sudden you have a new account. And you can, again, like you have all kinds of permissions. It's great for teams and sharing. So for business, going back to kind of the question I was answering, right? For business, I love Relay for getting things organized. And so if you're in the market for a new business banking account, that might be a way to do it. I think it's a lot easier than trying to manage a budget in like QuickBooks and things like that. And it's more natural to how we do things, right? We look at our bank balances to determine how much money we have. We're not necessarily looking at our budget every day, but we are looking at our bank balances every day, right? So if we can kind of create a budget from our bank balances, you can do automated transfers and things like that. So when money comes into one account, it automatically transfers into the buckets that you want to put it. And then you just spend what's left, right? So that can be really helpful in managing money in our business. Personal life is a little bit different, right? Again, if you're a budget person, something like YNAB is great. I think YNAB is fantastic for those that can keep up with it and want to keep up with it. I think it's an amazing tool. It's basically, you need a budget, but you really need to keep up with, making sure that when you're spending, it's going into these right categories and things like that. So it does require some maintenance. So, I mean, there are other apps out there as well. Some of them are paid, some of them are free. But again, I think it comes down to figuring out what's going to work best for you. And, how can you set those goals and put them on autopilot as much as possible, right? I think that systems are the key. Systems and habits are going to be the key to really managing your money in a way that works for you. Right now, those systems aren't going to be the same for everyone, but definitely, check out all the things. I love it. I love it. Okay. So I had one more question that I was going to pull from the Facebook that I liked. Oops. Let me put it up really quickly. Share screen. Okay, I think this is it. I love this question. Best business credit card. So it depends on what you want, right? It depends on what you want. Now, I'm going to try to block out my numbers. I have 2 Chase Ink cards. So clearly I really like Chase Ink. And it looks like our first commenter, Beverly, said she liked Chase Ink too. I love Chase Ink because of the fact that the points are transferable. So I have the Ink, the Ink Business Unlimited and the Ink Business Preferred. The preferred does have a fee, but I think the benefits are worth it. And the ink card is, or the unlimited ink Chase ink card is free. And I think they're great. I look for, I'm big on points. I really like points. I have actually some videos talking about points. So we can link the one that I did with Joy from Travel Savvy Mamas on my YouTube video. Or on my YouTube channel, I did a video with her this summer talking about how to get the most out of your business credit cards for points wise, and her favorites were the Chase Ink cards as well. What I like is that you can transfer those points. Mind you, like one thing that I have learned is that the way to make your money go farthest, if you plan to use it for travel specifically, is to move your money from, the Chase Ink card, the points that you have there, and transfer them to being able to be used for like airline flights. So there are certain airlines, I'm trying to remember, I think it's American, maybe it's United. I can't remember which ones partner with Chase, but you can use those and they'll go a lot farther, right? Rather than, using them as cash or even booking travel on the Chase website. So those transfers are going to do a lot better for you than if you use them directly. And that's what I like. Chase has a lot of different partners that you can transfer points to. You can actually, I have personal Chase cards too, and business Chase cards, and I can use them all. I can add the points up together, which is great too. So, yeah, so those are my favorite, but just to add, I recently found out that Relay also just released credit cards. So Relay, it used to be that you would just have debit cards with your accounts. Now you can actually use Relay credit cards. So if you are looking for like a team, this could be great, right? Again, they can spend from like those specific accounts that you've given them access to, and then you can give them access to credit cards. It is cash back. So Relay is best. You get 1%, I think, cash back if you spend over $10,000 in a month, and 1.5% if you spend over like $40,000 in a month. So if you're not regularly spending $10,000 in a month, then on your business, then Relay may not be the best bet. You may want to go with something like a Chase Ink. But if you are, and if you have employees that are spending and things like that, then having it captured within Relay could be a really good idea as well. So that's new, that just rolled out. So I love that. I think it's always helpful to have multiple different features all in together, and they're working. The last thing I talked to my rep literally yesterday, because I've been asking for invoicing. And that's the one thing that keeps me. I have another bank account through another provider. And the one thing that keeps me there is the invoicing functionality. And I want to keep invoicing, and Relay hasn't had it, but it's rolling out soon. So I'm not sure if I'm supposed to say that. If I'm not, sorry. But invoicing is coming to Relay. So if that's something that you will need, it will be incorporated soon enough. So, okay. All right. That is really what I had for the cues. I'm going to look in the comments to see if there's any more. Oh, hey, Roxanne. How's it going? I love seeing familiar faces in here. Roxanne says, good morning. Good morning. It's almost afternoon now. Well, it's almost noon here. Which software do you recommend? Well, Roxanne's she's in Hawaii, so I can see why. Good morning, Jamie. Which software do you recommend for personal financial management? And if QBO, which version? I don't recommend QBO for personal. It's not really meant for that. QBO is built for business finances. So I would find something that really is built for personal finances. I used to use Mint. Like any of my old Mint users, I loved it because it was easy and it was free, and it, you could connect it to all your bank accounts. Intuit got rid of Mint last year, and it was awful. So YNAB is a good personal budgeting solution, which stands for You Need a Budget. I don't personally use it. I'm still kind of looking to figure out which one I want to use for personal. So right now I kind of do it a little bit more manual. But there's also Monarch. I've heard really good things about Monarch. I think you do have to pay for Monarch though. So there are some options out there, but again, it really depends on you and what would be helpful for you. If you are a budget person, then, something like YNAB, I think would be great. If you are more of a set it and forget it person, it may not be the best. And maybe looking into seeing if, and I don't know any offhand, I know they exist, but there are some business, like personal banking platforms that do something similar to Relay, where you can kind of put money into different buckets and do like auto savings and things like that. So if you're not a budget person, it's all about the systems, right? And setting up systems that work for you. You can do Quicken. Yes, Quicken was the version that is meant for personal. I haven't used Quicken I used it like 20 years ago. So I cannot give an accurate review of Quicken anymore. But I have contacts that can. So if you want to use Quicken, I know people who are experts in it. I am just not that. But that is an option. I think if you don't like QuickBooks, don't use Quicken, right? Because it's an Intuit product. If you like QuickBooks, then Quicken might be a good fit for personal finances for sure. For sure. Okay, y'all are the best. So thanks for joining me for the second ever Power Numbers Live. I'll be back at the end of October. Maybe I'll wear a costume. I don't know. We'll see. But I'll be back at the end of October for the next Power Numbers Live. Make sure to submit your questions. I do try to answer as many as I can. JamieTrull.com/YouTube, or there's another way there's another way to do that if you're on Facebook that my team will tell you. But basically, you just have to join our newsletter, and then you'll get access to being able to submit questions for these lives. And thanks to those who came and showed up live. Thanks for being here. And you guys are the best. So we will talk soon, and I'll see you later. Bye.